The train stopped in the middle of the night. No announcement. No explanation. Inside the carriage, there were only 6 passengers, all silently staring out into the darkness beyond the windows. Nothing but a dead forest surrounded the tracks. I was heading home after work and had almost fallen asleep when I heard it. A scratching sound. Slow. Sharp. Like fingernails dragging across glass. At first, I thought it was tree branches. But then I realized something terrifying. The sound was coming from inside the train. Across from me sat an old woman in a black coat. She hadn't moved the entire trip. She just stared at the floor. But now her hand slowly slid across the window, leaving long wet marks behind. The conductor was nowhere to be seen. One of the passengers, a young guy in a gray hoodie, stood up nervously. "Why did we stop?" Nobody answered. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And went out. For a few seconds, the carriage drowned in complete darkness. Then I heard a voice. Quiet. Raspy. Right beside me. "Don't look outside." A cold wave ran through my body. The lights came back on. The old woman was gone. Her seat was empty. The guy in the hoodie laughed nervously and walked toward the door between the carriages. Locked. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, banging on the metal. That's when we saw it. Something standing outside the train. A tall black figure between the trees. Too tall to be human. It didn't move. It just stared at us. The woman beside me quickly shut the curtain. "They can't see your face," she whispered. "Who are they?" I asked. She stayed silent for a moment. Then quietly replied. "The ones who leave after the second stop." At that exact moment, the train jerked violently and started moving again. Everyone sighed in relief. But the guy in the hoodie was gone. Only his phone remained on the floor. The screen was still glowing. The camera app was open. And in the reflection of the black window, there was something standing directly behind us. That's when I understood the truth. The train hadn't stopped in the forest. It had stopped to pick someone up. The next station appeared 10 minutes later. No lights. No signs. No people. Just an empty platform covered in fog. The train doors slowly opened by themselves. Nobody got in. Nobody got out. But the smell changed instantly. Wet soil. Rust. And something rotten. A little girl sitting at the far end of the carriage suddenly spoke for the first time. "They're here." Every passenger froze. I looked outside again before anyone could stop me. At first, I saw nothing. Then the fog moved. Shapes. Dozens of them standing silently on the platform. Tall. Thin. Motionless. Watching us. And every single one of them had the same face. Mine. I couldn't breathe. Every figure standing on the platform had my face. Not similar. Not close. Exactly my face. Same eyes. Same scar above my eyebrow. Same black jacket I was wearing right now. The little girl covered her ears and started whispering something over and over. "Don't let them inside, don't let them inside." One of the figures suddenly smiled. Not a normal smile. Its mouth stretched too wide, almost tearing across its cheeks. Then another one smiled. And another. At the same time. The train doors began to close slowly. But just before they shut completely, one of the copies moved. Fast. Too fast. It slammed its hand between the doors. The metal groaned. The lights exploded above us. Glass rained across the carriage as the doors forced themselves back open. And then silence. The figure stood there in the doorway, perfectly still. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Up close, it looked wrong. Its skin was pale gray, stretched tightly across its face like wet paper. Its eyes were completely black. But the worst part, it was still smiling with my face. The woman beside me grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "Don't speak to it," she whispered. "If it answers you, it learns." The creature tilted its head slowly toward me. Then it spoke in my voice. "Seat 14, it said softly. My blood froze. That was my seat number. "How do you know that?" I whispered before I could stop myself. The entire carriage gasped. The old woman across the aisle looked at me in horror. "You answered it," she said. The creature smiled wider. Then every light inside the train turned red. The doors slammed shut. And the train started moving again. But the thing with my face was still inside. Nobody dared to look directly at it now. It walked slowly down the aisle, dragging its fingers across the seats. Tap. 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 Like it was counting us. When it reached the little girl, she squeezed her eyes shut. The creature leaned close to her ear. "You survived longer this time," it whispered. The girl began crying instantly. "What does that mean?" I asked. The woman beside me looked at me like I'd just signed my own death sentence. She remembers previous trips. The train suddenly entered a tunnel. Complete darkness swallowed the windows. But somehow, I could still see the creature. Standing in the middle of the carriage. Smiling. Watching only me. Then every passenger's phone vibrated at the exact same moment. Everyone slowly looked down. No signal. No notifications. Just one new audio file. Untitled_14.mp3. My hands trembled as I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then I heard breathing. Heavy breathing. And after a few seconds, my own voice spoke. "If you're hearing this, don't trust the conductor." A loud bang echoed from somewhere ahead of the train. The lights flickered again. Then the speaker system crackled to life. "Next stop," a distorted voice announced. A long pause followed. "Final transfer." The passengers around me looked terrified. One man stood up immediately. "No," he whispered. "No, we're early." "What happens at the final transfer?" I asked. Nobody answered. The man rushed toward the emergency brake and pulled it with all his strength. Nothing happened. He pulled again. Still nothing. Then the creature with my face slowly turned toward him. And pointed. At first, nothing happened. Then the man's nose began bleeding. He screamed and fell to the floor, clutching his head. Blood poured from his ears now. The sound of bones cracking filled the carriage. And right in front of us, his face started changing. Slowly twisting. Stretching. Becoming someone else. Me. The little girl started screaming. He picked another one. The man looked up at me with terrified eyes. But they weren't his eyes anymore. They were mine. The train suddenly slowed down. Outside the windows, dim lights appeared through the fog. A station. But this one wasn't abandoned. People stood on the platform. Dozens of normal-looking people waiting calmly for the train. Some were reading books. Some drinking coffee. Some staring at their phones. Everything looked completely ordinary. Until I noticed one detail. Every single person on the platform had no face. Just smooth skin where their eyes and mouths should have been. The train stopped. The speaker crackled again. "Transfer complete," the voice announced. And then the conductor finally appeared. Tall. Thin. Wearing an old dark uniform covered in dust. His face hidden beneath a cracked visor cap. He slowly walked into our carriage and smiled. "I'm sorry for the delay," he said politely. Then he looked directly at me. But we've finally found your replacement. The conductor's words hung in the air like a death sentence. Your replacement. I stared at him, unable to speak. The creature wearing my face stood silently at the end of the carriage, its black eyes fixed on me like it was waiting for permission. What do you mean, replacement? I finally asked. The conductor removed one black leather glove slowly. His fingers were burned completely black. You've been on this train longer than you think, he replied. That's impossible. I got on tonight. The passengers exchanged nervous looks. Then the little girl whispered. They all say that. A cold pressure tightened in my chest. The conductor reached into his coat and pulled out a small stack of train tickets. Old paper tickets. Yellowed with age. He flipped through them calmly until he stopped at one. Then handed it to me. My hand shook as I looked down. The ticket had my full name printed on it. But the date made my stomach drop. October 14th. 1998. I was born in 2003. That's not possible, I whispered. The conductor tilted his head slightly. Time works differently here. Suddenly, memories flashed through my mind. Brief. Broken. Like shattered glass. A train platform. Rain, someone screaming my name. A hand grabbing my shoulder. Then darkness. I nearly collapsed. The woman beside me caught my arm. You're remembering, she said quietly. Remembering what? Nobody answered. The train started moving again, faster this time. Outside the windows, the world no longer looked real. The forest was gone. Now there was only an endless black landscape under a dark red sky. No stars. No moon. Just miles of dead land. And far away in the distance. Other trains. Hundreds of them. Moving silently across the darkness. Every window filled with passengers. Watching. The conductor began walking down the aisle. Each step echoed unnaturally loud. Clang. 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 When he reached the man whose face had changed into mine, he stopped. Inspection, he announced. The man started crying. Please, please don't. The conductor ignored him. He lifted the man's chin carefully and stared into his eyes for several seconds. Then sighed. Unstable copy. Before anyone could react, the conductor grabbed the man's head. And twisted. A horrible crack echoed through the carriage. The body dropped instantly. Dead. The little girl buried her face in her knees. Nobody screamed. It was almost like they'd seen this before. The conductor calmly looked back at me. You see the problem? He asked. That thing outside. He pointed toward the creature with my face. Learned too much from you. I couldn't stop staring at the dead body on the floor. What are those things? The conductor smiled faintly. Passengers. The lights flickered again. Then every window suddenly turned completely white. Not bright. Just blank. As if reality outside no longer existed. The train slowed down once more. A deep metallic sound echoed ahead. Like massive gates opening. The conductor's expression changed instantly. For the first time, he looked nervous. We're arriving too early, he muttered. The passengers began panicking quietly. The woman beside me grabbed my sleeve. You need to hide. From what? But before she could answer, something hit the roof of the train. Boom. The entire carriage shook violently. Another impact followed. Closer this time. Boom. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then came scratching. Huge claws dragging across the metal above us. Slowly. Patiently. The conductor looked upward in horror. No, he whispered. Even the creature with my face stepped backward. Afraid. whatever was above us. It terrified all of them. The scratching stopped directly over my seat. Silence filled the carriage. Then a voice echoed from the roof. Not loud. Not angry. Just calm. And familiar. Found you. My heart stopped. It was my father's voice. But my father died when I was 7 years old. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. The voice above the train repeated itself. Found you. This time, slower. Closer. The metal ceiling above my seat bent inward with a horrible screech. Thin cracks spread across it like spiderwebs. The little girl started shaking violently. He never comes himself, she whispered. He sends the others. The conductor stepped backward for the first time since I'd seen him. Fear. Real fear. On his face. What is that? I asked. The conductor looked directly at me. That, he said quietly, is the reason we keep moving. Another massive shook the train. The lights died completely. Emergency red lights switched on a second later, covering the carriage in dark crimson. Then the ceiling ripped open. Metal exploded downward. Cold air rushed inside. And something crawled across the roof upside down. At first I could only see its hands. Long fingers. Human, but wrong. Too many joints. Its head slowly lowered through the torn ceiling. I froze. It looked exactly like my father. The same beard. The same tired eyes. The same old gray jacket he wore the night he died. But his smile. His smile was impossible. Too wide. Too still. Daniel, it said softly. That was my name. The name I hadn't heard from my father in almost 20 years. Tears instantly filled my eyes. Part of me wanted to run. But another part wanted to believe it was really him. You died, I whispered. The thing smiled wider. Not completely. The conductor suddenly shouted. Don't listen to him. The creature's expression changed instantly. Its face twitched unnaturally fast, like dozens of emotions flashing at once. Then its neck cracked sideways. It stared directly at the conductor. You stole him from me. The windows shattered all at once. Passengers screamed as freezing wind flooded the carriage. Outside, the black landscape was moving impossibly fast now. The train wasn't on tracks anymore. It was flying through darkness. The conductor pulled a strange silver object from inside his coat. A punch ticket tool. Old-fashioned. Rusty. But symbols were carved into the metal that seemed to move when I looked at them. The creature wearing my father's face hissed violently. You marked him, it growled. The conductor stepped in front of me. He belongs to the line now. The thing smiled again. No, it whispered. Then it pointed at me. He opened the door himself. Suddenly, memory slammed into my head like a truck. Not flashes this time. Entire moments. I saw myself younger. 17 years old. Standing alone on an empty station platform at night. Crying. Holding a photograph of my father. I heard my own voice speaking. I just want to see him again. Then. The train arrived. Slowly emerging from the fog. Exactly this train. The conductor opened the door and asked me one question. Would you like another chance? I remembered getting on. I remembered signing something. And then? Nothing. Oh God, I whispered. The woman beside me looked at me sadly. You were never supposed to stay this long. My legs nearly gave out. This isn't a normal train, is it? No, the conductor answered. It travels between unfinished deaths. The entire carriage fell silent. Some passengers started crying quietly. Others stared blankly at the floor. The little girl finally looked up at me. I drowned in 1986, she said softly. The old woman spoke next. Heart attack. 1971. One by one, the passengers began revealing the truth. Car crash. Fire. Suicide. Murder. Every single one of them had died. Or almost died. And somehow, they ended up here. I backed away slowly until I hit the window behind me. This isn't real. The creature wearing my father's face crawled fully into the carriage now. Its limbs bent in horrible directions as it moved across the ceiling like a spider. But it whispered. Then it stopped directly above me. Its face lowered inches from mine. And for 1 second, the smile disappeared. I saw sadness in its eyes. Real sadness. You could have left years ago, it said quietly. The conductor suddenly turned toward me. Don't believe him. But the creature continued speaking. You know why you stayed? My chest tightened. Deep down, I already knew the answer. Because every stop, every nightmare, every passenger, I kept hoping one of them would truly be my father. The creature gently touched my forehead. And whispered. He's still alive, Daniel. Then the train emergency brakes activated by themselves. A deafening scream of metal echoed through the darkness. And ahead of us, for the first time, I saw the end of the line. The end of the line looked nothing like a station. It looked like a city. A dead city. Endless black buildings stretched beneath a blood-red sky, their windows glowing faintly like dying embers. Massive train tracks twisted through the streets in every direction, disappearing into darkness. And in the center of it all stood a tower. So tall its top vanished into the clouds. The train slowed as alarms echoed through every carriage. The conductor's calm expression was gone now. He looked terrified. No, he whispered. We can't stop here. But the brakes screamed louder. The train was slowing anyway. Outside, shapes began appearing between the buildings. Thousands of them. People. Or things pretending to be people. They turned toward the train all at once. Watching us arrive. The creature wearing my father's face crawled down from the ceiling and landed silently in front of me. You remember now, it said. I couldn't answer. Because more memories were returning. Not just memories. Truth. I remembered the accident. Rain. A highway at night. My father driving too fast. Then headlights coming toward us. A truck. I remembered the impact. Glass exploding. Metal twisting. And my father screaming my name. Then. Nothing. You died with him, the creature whispered. My entire body went numb. No. Yes. The conductor suddenly grabbed my shoulder hard. Don't listen. It wants you to cross willingly. What's happening to me? I shouted. The other passengers were panicking now. Some were trying to force open the doors. Others were praying. The little girl sat perfectly still, staring out the window. They know he's here, she whispered. Who? She slowly pointed toward the tower outside. And that's when I saw them. Faces. Huge faces pressing out from the sides of the tower itself. Human faces trapped inside the black walls, silently screaming. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. The train finally stopped. Absolute silence followed. Then came a knock. 3 slow knocks against the train door. Knock. 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 Nobody moved. The conductor slowly stepped backward. I need everyone to remain seated, he said quietly. Another knock came. Harder this time. Then a voice echoed from outside the door. Ticket inspection. The passengers started crying immediately. The old woman covered her mouth. The little girl whispered. They found him. The conductor turned to me. You cannot answer that door. No matter what you hear. The voice outside spoke again. Calm. Polite. Exactly like a normal train employee. Passenger Daniel Harper, it said. Your transfer has been approved. My blood froze. The creature wearing my father's face leaned closer to me. You asked to see him again, it whispered. This is the price. The knocking grew louder. Knock. 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 The entire train shook now. Tiny cracks spread across the windows. Something outside was forcing its way in. Then the speaker system suddenly turned on by itself. Static screamed through the carriage. And a new voice spoke. Not the conductor. Not the creature. Mine. If you hear this recording, it means you failed again. I stared upward in horror. The audio continued. You keep making the same mistake. Every time the train reaches the city, you trust him. The creature's smile vanished instantly. The recording continued. Dad died in the crash. Whatever is wearing his face is not him. The carriage fell silent. My own recorded voice sounded terrified. It learns from your grief. It uses your memories against you. The creature backed away slightly now. For the first time, it looked angry. The recording continued with heavy breathing in the background. There's only one way off the train. The knocking outside became violent now. Metal bent inward. Passengers screamed. Do not let the inspectors touch you, the recording said. If they mark your ticket. Static interrupted the message for several seconds. Then my voice returned one last time. You become part of the city. The audio ended. Silence. Then the train door exploded inward. A tall figure stepped inside. Its body was unnaturally thin beneath a dark uniform. Its face hidden behind a white porcelain mask. And stitched across the mask was my smile.